Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, yes. So can you tell us a little bit about Fountain of Health?
Sure. So, Fountain of Health was primarily started by my wife, Lauren. Um, it was her idea. Basically, I was farming hemp in 2015 in greenhouses in Loveland, Colorado, and contracts had fallen through with my buyers, and
Mhm.
I was sitting on a bunch of hemp and didn't have anybody to buy it. And she, sort of as a move of desperation to cover our greenhouse payment, um, started sending bottles to her her friends back in Florida, and they loved the product and kept demanding more, and so made more. And as time went on, things got more and more business like, I guess you could say. And yeah, it just spiraled sort of out of control. So it was not intentional. We sort of fell into it. The goal was
Mhm.
just to farm hemp,
Mhm.
um, and then it into a CPG deal, and that's where we are today. So
Oh,
there's a
okay.
long to go with how we came into contact with our partner, who's our extractor. Actually, his wife was teaching our children at our local Montessori school, and it just, serendipity. Everything just fell into place, and that's how Fountain of Health was born.
Oh,
So,
that's wonderful. So you started
yeah.
off growing in a greenhouse, and then did you bottle in-house as well? Or did you
Uh,
find
Yeah, so our partner Sean has a lab, or had a lab, still has the lab. It's obviously grown a lot more, but at the time it was a little mobile lab. It's funny how things start.
Mhm.
But he was doing all of the formulating, extracting, and everything in his mobile lab, and then eventually moved into a great big facility up in Floyd Hill. It's all GMP and certified and so on and so forth. So,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, so we don't do any of the bottling. Our partner does that.
Mhm.
Um, I send him the hemp, he processes it, sends the virgin bottles back to Lauren, and then she does all the labeling, compliance, so on and so forth, and ships and sells and all of that.
Right. So Lauren was like, you know what? Your intention was to just grow, but then it's like, oh man, now I have to learn about compliance and regulations and what has to be on this bottle and whatnot. So I'm sure it
And
was a learning curve for everyone.
oh, absolutely. And still, the laws are constantly in flux. I mean,
Hmm.
on what state the bottles are going to, she has different labels for and stickers and so on and so forth in order to be compliant. It's crazy. I could never personally handle that, but she does really well with it.
Well, that's fabulous. I'm glad that you guys are a great team. So do you only now grow in greenhouse or do you do field grown as
Yeah,
well?
I probably field grow now. I only use greenhouses to start my seedlings, and I grow everything from seed.
Hmm.
Um, and then we go out into the field. Uh, in my opinion, there's no you can't be competitive producing a crop for biomass in a greenhouse. You have to be out in the field in order to keep your
Hmm.
cost control. That's just the nature of what's happened to hemp. I mean, we went from biomass was selling for $45 a pound down to 3 pounds for $1. And so when the economics shift like that, there's just no way to be competitive in a greenhouse.
Hmm. Hmm. That makes sense.
Nature of
So, how long have you been growing outdoors?
I started growing outdoors in 20 late 2016.
Hmm.
Um, so for the 2017 crop was the first ones in the field.
Okay, okay. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of, purchasing the right seeds for, your microclimate and what soil type should farmers be looking for if they want to get started?
Sure. So seed is challenging.
Hmm.
Where we are, we're at 8,300 feet up in Shawnee near Kenosha Pass, up in the high Rockies. We start late and we have to be out early because the weather is just crazy.
Hmm.
And so early on, I recognized that none of the seed varieties that I could get were going to finish in time. And so
Hmm.
what I did was I had this amazing cherry wine breed that my buddy Joe Kennedy had given me. And that's what I had been growing in greenhouses and such. And then I found a feral hemp, but it was a very late finisher. It would not finish in our climate. And then
Hmm.
I found a feral hemp variety that finished early and was compliant, had lower THC and lower CBD. And so I started breeding the two.
Okay.
And and so basically, what I've developed is a cherry wine that finishes very early. And so, like this year, we were out in the field by the 20th of September, and uh, and that gives me plenty of time to get everything processed and out before all the crazy weather comes.
Right.
So there are some other breeds that I found that do finish early, and I'm going to play with some more of them next year, primarily from Oregon CBD seeds. But they're expensive and they're sort of hyped up, if you will. I feel like my breeds are tailored for our climate, and and they've worked extremely well up to this point. So.
And can you tell our listeners what climate you are in now or where you grow?
Yeah, up at the in the high Rockies, we typically uh, we are still getting freezes towards late May. This
Hmm.
last year, we got into the ground around the 6th of June, and I had a cold snap around the 15th of June. It was not in the forecast, and all of a sudden it came in and hit all my plants. It did cause some variation in the plants. Some handled it better than others, I guess is the best way to say it. I do use a plastic mulch as well in order to get a little bit more root protection.
Hmm.
This year I had one row that was not under mulch and they got fried hard. They did come back, most of them,
Hmm.
but the mulch really, really, really helped the bulk of the plants push through okay. And then we started getting some heavy cold snaps around the 10th of September. Um, but they just sort of purpled out a lot of the plants and burnt a few pretty good, but
Hmm.
the vast majority were able to take it. So again, it's very difficult to grow up at that elevation unless you have the proper genetics. I would actually go so far as to say it's impossible to grow the plant up there without the proper genetics because
Hmm.
that cold when it comes it's brutal and it doesn't
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
almost unforgiving. Yeah.
it just wipes everything out like a giant eraser. So, coincidentally, about 2 seasons ago, we got 12 inches of snow and 12 degrees for 2 days on the 8th of September. And I don't care what kind of plants I had at that point, nothing
Yeah.
would have. So it's still a roll of the dice without question being up
Hmm.
there. But there's huge advantages to being up there over in the lower plains or wherever else. And that's namely from a pest perspective. Since there's no other farms up there, we
Hmm.
don't have easy pest pressures. I have literally never had to spray my plants with pesticides in the field, not even once. And that's even using soaps and oils, nothing.
Hmm.
Um, because the only pests we really have are a little bit of thrips, which hang out on the lamb's quarter and the pigweed, and then we have some aphids that roll in. But we
Hmm.
have a crazy population of native ladybugs that come in and wipe them all out. And
Hmm.
so all I really have to do because of our location is keep my plants healthy, feed them well, and recognize that nature is going to take care of the pest control issues. It's
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, our water comes right off of the snowpack. And so we have senior water rights coming off of the Platte, which is fed by the Roberts Tunnel from Summit County, from Lake Dillon, which is obviously all the snowpack from all the ski areas, and then it also feeds off of Guanella Pass, which is Mount Evans, and so we have incredible water. Our soils, since it was never farmed, it was just grazed for forever, whether it was elk and cattle or whatever. Um, our soils are ancient, and so we have incredible soil, especially for being
Oh,
a so
yeah,
and so.
that's very fortunate then. Since I was going to ask, what type of soil, were your seeds or your seedlings grown in? And it sounds like it was like the ideal type of
It's
soil.
incredible. It's our soil is incredible. We have really high organic matter. I use a lot of cover crops. This I had just recently put down a plow down uh, called that has three types of clover: red, white, and yellow clover, which will help fix
Mhm.
it. The only thing my soil lacks is a little bit of nitrogen. So if I can increase my organic matter even more, I'm up to about 7 or 8%, which is pretty damn good. But if I can keep building that up and keep adding more microbes and keep plowing under nitrogen fixing cover crops,
Hmm.
that'll just keep my soil getting better and better and better. I have the craziest amount of earthworms you've ever seen up in that soil. It's just ridiculous.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah,
And that's what,
I'll,
I think when farmers, no matter what crop they're going to grow, they kind of skip of like what kind of soil it's being grown in. And that's, vital before you start planting anything.
yeah,
So, you know,
soil's go figure.
right. And and I'm not sure if you have any tips or if you ever worked with other types of soil, like compacted clay soil or anything like that.
Oh yeah. When I
Yeah.
used to farm, I farmed down in Strasburg, just west of or just east of Denver for a little while, and our soil there was absolutely horrendous,
Hmm.
horrendous. And I mean, when it dried out, you couldn't even hit it with a shovel to break it. It was just incredible. Um, the soil I operate on now is absolutely 100% different. And then I farmed historically. I farmed in Florida as well, where it's
Hmm.
sandy soil with very 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 little nutrient to it. Everything just washes straight through. So yeah, I've farmed all sorts of different soils, and I will say that what I have right now up in the Shawnee area is unparalleled. Period. It's incredible.
So if farmers have to work with, compacted or clay soil, do you have like any recommendations where they can get it to where the pH level is great? There is now organic matter. Like how long would it take for a farmer to almost regenerate this land and the soil?
Yeah, it actually doesn't take nearly as long as you would think.
Okay.
By using microbe packages and cover crops, you can actually
Mhm.
turn it back over fairly quickly. I've heard some people say a year. I think that that's probably a little ambitious. But I would say within a couple of years, if you're getting good germination on your cover crops, that you can definitely fix destroyed soil. It just
Mhm.
takes effort and it takes money. And
Mhm.
like when you're farming huge acreage, it's not easy to come up with the money to fix what's been destroyed. So,
Right.
uh, it turns into a financial issue for a lot of people.
It does. It does.
It's definitely doable.
And I will say that, with the Biden administration focusing on climate smart commodities and actually encouraging farmers to take the regenerative, ag or, organic route is, I think it's nice. It's a nice turnover in how we see farming. Um, there's almost like a negative image when, because of the how we grow industrially. They're like, farmers are causing, GHG emissions and whatnot. And, but also if you want to feed millions of people, like how else would you grow? So I think we're just trying to find that balance of how to support, ecological farming methods, but still feed millions of people. And not have a,
Balance, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's tough. It's tough. And we've been farming in the same manner. We've been farming for what, 50, 60, 70 years, whatever it is, since the ag revolution and fertilizers really kicked off. And so now we're generations doing it the way that we've been doing it for some time. And whenever you're trying to change uh, what people have been doing for generation after generation, that's not an easy lift.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if we screw it up and people start starving. And so it's definitely challenging. It's definitely challenging. I have a lot of respect for farmers who farm in all different ways. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
so changing is very challenging for everybody. Um, and so I think that mainly it's just going to take a little bit of time, as we learn more and more. Regenerative farming in general has more to do with animal production versus crop production,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the challenge of putting animals in feedlots and then farming the hay or silage in order to bring it to the feedlots to feed the animals.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's the bulk of the challenge right there, is getting our farms back to being multi-crop producers, i.e. producing crops and animals as
Mm-hmm.
well, or to get them away from just being a monoculture and just say producing your corn silage and sending it to the feedlot.
Right.
We got to get back to having the animals on the land, rotating through the pastures and so on and so forth, which helps build the soils back up and starts to reduce tillage and so on and so forth, which helps with all your greenhouse gases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just a high value crop producer like a tomato producer or hemp producer or whatever, um, the whole challenge changes because you're not producing animals as your main product. You're producing fruits and vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where things start to get a little more challenging, because high value crop producers are obviously, we produce very important fruits and vegetables for people, but you don't have the same rotations with animals going into the fields as you do if you were producing, say, uh, uh, cattle primarily. Does
Right.
that make sense?
It does. It does. And so I know that you said you farmed in Florida, and I forgot the other state that you mentioned.
Western North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. So have you farmed anything, besides hemp?
Oh gosh, yes. Hemp is, yeah. I've farmed annuals, perennials, woody ornamentals, trees, liners, tomatoes, lettuces, herbs, um, all sorts of stuff. All sorts of stuff. Hemp I've been farming since 2015 though, as my primary crop.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I do look forward to the day of being able to produce other crops as well. But right now, hemp is what I do. So,
Right. And what can you say were the challenges when you first started growing hemp?
be honest, growing cannabis in general is far easier than
Okay.
growing a lot of other crops. I think a lot of people put it up on a pedestal because it's been prohibited for so long. But to be perfectly honest, hemp is a joke. It's so easy to grow that it's silly.
I think it's more of a compliance that is like the issues,
That's
and the
dealing
banking.
with the government. It's dealing with
Mm-hmm.
the and dealing with the banks and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's challenging. But from a horticultural perspective, it's as easy as it gets. I
Yeah.
mean, like when I farm potatoes, for instance, oh my God, the amount of labor, effort that
Mm-hmm.
goes into growing tomatoes in greenhouses in particular is insane. I mean, you have to touch every single plant 5, 6 times a week. If you're growing tomatoes in a greenhouse, you're suckering, you're leaning and lowering, you're cluster pruning, you're harvesting, it's incessant and nonstop. With hemp,
Uh-huh.
or sort of cannabis, especially in a greenhouse, you get it going and you get out of the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure, there's some here and there that goes on, some crop steering, no question, but it's so easy and it's so limited in the amount of stuff you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's all regulation, compliance, banking, all those sort of ancillary things that
Mm-hmm.
make anything in the world difficult. Other than that, it's one of the easiest damn crops to grow on the planet, period.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, yeah, I mean,
it's ironic,
I
right?
know. Believe me, I mean, we're trying to work on just even the grain and fiber hemp exception here, where it's like, you know what, like we shouldn't be, fingerprinting our farmers, and treat them like, you know,
Yeah.
like
I
criminals.
was close to quitting when they told me I had to get fingerprinted. I was so angry, and I
Right.
let the CA know. They didn't care though. I mean, they said, "Yeah, we've been hearing that from a lot of people. Do you want to grow hemp or not?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
And
the other interesting aspect to it is that, like, I have farmers friends who have been farming other crops for for a long, long time. In Florida, for instance, a guy named Kevin, who I know, one of his crops popped at 3.5% THC. It was one of the plants that he had gotten from FAMU. Okay. In Florida, they didn't even care. From what I understand, in Colorado, if I go over 1%, the DEA gets involved. In Florida, they didn't even come out to look at it. They told him just to till it under. So he tilled it
mm-hmm.
under. Three
Mm-hmm.
and a half THC. And so when I hear stories like that, and this is a farmer who's a friend of mine, he's not
Mm-hmm.
lying to me.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the rules that we put into place in Colorado, and I don't understand why we're being persecuted like we are. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make sense. And it's very aggravating. It's
It
very
is.
aggravating. It makes me want to stay to Colorado, to be perfectly honest. So
Because all you
they're
want to
just
do is
going.
just farm.
What's that?
All you want to do is just farm and, produce
Exactly.
what they want to bring out to the consumers, like,
Yeah.
in any, horticultural market. So yeah, it is
Yeah.
frustrating as a whole. It truly is.
And
But
so
hopefully
as
we'll able to ease that.
a farmer, we don't farm typically, unless you're like one of these giant agri corporations. We don't farm because we're making a killing. We
Right, right.
farm because of the lifestyle. When
Mm-hmm.
you start to farming difficult from in the manner that the USDA and the CDA are impacting us with, we don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
There's a ton of other crops I can grow to not have to deal with the bullshit that I have to deal with. I'm sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox and I apologize. But
No, but this is, from
it
a real
it's very,
farmer perspective. Mm-hmm.
it's very aggravating. I mean, we farm for the lifestyle. We farm because we want to live in the country. We farm because we don't want to go work for some company. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why we do what we do, because of the lifestyle. When you start impacting us with these stupid rules and regulations and making us get fingerprinted in order to farm,
It's
I'm
starting to
not going to do it.
deter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, negatively
Um,
impacts my lifestyle. And I
yeah,
farm is
from
for the lifestyle.
fingerprinting, a license to grow, paying someone to come out and look at your crops, see if it's compliant. Yeah, those fees add up. And farming isn't easy. The return is, not usually high unless you really do have an excellent buyer. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I can see the deterrent. Um, but hopefully, the next farm bill, we will try our best. We just need to hear from more farmers like you, the frustrations that you're going through, so we can keep growing this crop and have it be a competitive major commodity. Because, like you said, it's like, you plant the seeds in the field and let it do its thing and harvest, and there you go. It's easy peasy. Well, in some sorts of way.
Mother Nature beating you down and the market beat and everything else. But it's nice to not have to up and go into an office.
Right, right.
So
No, no, I agree. And then too, I mean, do you have any advice for young beginning farmers who are transitioning from corporate to now ag. Like, what would you,
Yeah,
if you had two, two or three, advice or guidance, what would you say to them?
try to find a good mentor would be really the first one, because of course you can learn a lot from reading, you can learn a lot from school and so on and so forth, but the vast majority of your education farming comes from actually doing it and taking
Hmm.
licks. And so if you have a good mentor, somebody who can help show you the ropes, um, it's invaluable.
Hmm.
Most of the really good farmers, you know, or multi-generational. They've learned from their father, their mother, their grandfather. Like, that knowledge is passed on generation from generation. And then of course, as you go to school, you start to learn how to tweak it, do it better, and do it differently, and put your own spin on it. But
Hmm.
a strong mentor, critical.
Yeah,
And
just
you
for
got to just be
the
ready a
foundation.
lot. Yeah, and you're going to take licks. I mean, there's some things that are just totally out of your control, like when the bad weather rolls in. I mean, all you
Yeah.
can do is sort of throw your hands up and be like, "Oh, that sucks,"
Hmm.
But there's also a lot of farmers who rely a lot on farmer welfare through FSA. And so if that's your game, you should definitely make sure that you're in touch with FSA. I don't do welfare. I'm a little bit stubborn in that manner. And
Hmm.
so I don't look to the government. I do it on my own. And if I'm successful, I'm successful. If I'm not, I take my licks and I move forward.
Hmm.
But it's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, right.
And there's just a lot to learn, and a lot's out of your control, and you've got to be good at being able to just recognize that you don't have control of everything. And
Hmm.
sometimes your crop, whether you want to or not, no matter what you do, you're going to lose your crop sometimes,
Right.
and you've got to be prepared one way or another. So,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
obviously where FSA comes in. FSA helps a lot of farmers stay farming. And so I don't mean to bash on it. It's just not my thing. So
Hmm.
that was another thing they made this year, was register with the FSA. I've been farming for 25 years, and I've been adamant the whole time register with, and they forced me to register with,
Hmm.
sort of bone.
I think it's more for just like from a data perspective, especially this is like a nascent industry. So some of that
Yeah.
data does help to know, how much
Yeah.
acreage,
Yeah. I, you know, I hear you, but at the same time, I farm
when
for a reason.
right, right.
I'm
Um
stubborn. I'm stubborn. I'll always be stubborn. I'm gonna die stubborn. That's just how it is. So,
so can you tell us a little bit about your end product? What Fountain of Health
yeah,
sells?
yeah. So we make some incredible oils. We have Sean over at EVG, who's our partner. He has developed a type of extraction using terpenes to extract the cannabinoids. And he also uses sort of a vacuum system in order to garner the maximum amount of terpenes out of the crop as well. And so that's where obviously it all starts, right? It's with the extraction. Um, and then because we have everything dialed in from a cost perspective, we were one of the original companies to really lower the cost of the product. When we first
Mhm.
started, Charlotte's Web was the only game in town, and and CV Sciences, and their products were super expensive. We were able to really knock the costs down real low, and we came into the market at the same price as where we're at right now, as a matter of fact. And the market dropped down to where we were at. And so we're very proud of the fact that we produce an extremely high quality product at a reasonable price for the consumer.
Yeah.
Um, but we have a full range of oils for pets and humans. We do a bunch of salves as well. With all sorts of interesting botanicals. We don't do anything with isolate. We
Mhm.
do not believe in that. We are full spectrum oil providers, and so all of our product have very, very little, obviously under the 0.3% THC level. Um, but then they're chock full of minor cannabinoids, high volumes of terpenes, and so on and so forth. So our products are second to none. Second to none. Absolutely awesome. We don't, additionally, another difference with us is that most companies focus on their website sales, going direct to consumer. We
Mhm.
focus strongly natural food store partners. And so that's just another difference is we're hyper focused on the wholesale end, trying to support retail partners.
Mhm.
And so everything is in support of them. Now, during COVID, yeah, that hurt us real bad because a lot of natural food retailers got shut down. The government actually told them they couldn't even open in some states. And so we took a big hit uh,
Mhm.
because of that. But nonetheless, we stay strong and we're very principled people. And so we continue to support them to this day. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. And your wife, when she sent over a sample to her friend, what did her friend, say, testimonial wise, or or
Oh,
anything?
they
Like,
were blown
this is the
away.
direction we want to go. Yeah.
Yeah, they were blown away. Yeah, the quality when you try to like our whole goal has always just been to take that plant out of the field and stuff it in a bottle. We don't want to hyper process anything, you
Right.
know. We don't want to take everything to isolate, to distill it. It's a process. We want to give you the orange instead of the vitamin C. And that's been our goal from the start, is the fact that the plant is amazing and we've evolved with this plant. So just give the people the plant. You don't
Right.
need to go and mankind it, if you will, and sit there and modify it and do this crap and that crap. Just give them the plant. And so that's been our whole goal. And the reactions we get from people when they try it are it's moving. The the cannabis plant helps people in dramatic fashion. I think we all know that. And
Hmm.
so when you're going through the effort of farming this plant and then going through the effort of bottling it and so on and so forth, all that effort, and then you get these testimonials back, like people, like you changed their lives.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's way better than growing a tomato, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. So that's why I feel like
You're giving
farmers, hemp
people
farmers,
health.
yep.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I'm just, yeah, it's something that you almost couldn't put a price on. And that's why
Absolutely.
doing it year after year after year. Because of those testimonials. And it's kind of amazing. Like, wow, what I grew with my hands helping someone 5 to 1,000 miles away. Um,
Yeah.
that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Improve people's quality of life. That's amazing, right? I mean,
Hmm.
wow. That's
It
awesome.
is.
It's a
It
good way to
is.
go through life. It's sort of like feeding people plus. As a farmer, it's always great to feed people, but if you're feeding them and all of a sudden they're getting super duper duper healthy, I mean, wow, that's
Right.
awesome.
Right. No, it really is. And it's hard to explain unless you're, in that situation. But I've have a couple of friends that have cannabinoid businesses, and they're like, you know what, I'm not getting the return that I expect and what my product deserves. But these, I don't want to say patients, but the individuals that I helped keep me going.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah,
that's wonderful.
feels good. Feels part of the solution, right? And that's a great thing.
It is. So where can our viewers find your product?
Yeah. So again, we focus heavily on natural food stores. We don't do we're pretty principled people. We don't do the great big box stores and stuff. We focus on mom and pops. I think
Hmm.
the biggest chain that with is maybe 5 or 6 stores.
Hmm.
But if you go to our website, fohcbd.com, there is a tab on there that says shop local. Um, and you drop it down and you'll see all of our retail partners across the whole country. I think we're in up to around 400 stores, if I'm not mistaken. And that's probably down a little bit. I don't keep up on it because of COVID sort of wrecked everything.
Hmm.
But That's one way. And then obviously you could always just buy direct. We do prefer people to go to their local natural food stores, but we're not in every city in the nation. And so
Mm.
there are some folks who the only way they can get it is to buy it straight through the website. So yeah, fohcbd.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for, doing this interview with me. And I learned a lot about Fountain of Health, your farming background and, this emotional bond from seed to end product, and what you hear is amazing. And that's why people farm hemp most of the time.
And I appreciate you and your time for sure. Thank you for chatting with me. I
Of
appreciate it.
course. So once again, you can visit Fountain of Health at fohcbd.com if you wanted to shop and look at their products. And you can also visit their website to learn more about them.
Awesome. Thank you
Well,
so
thank you
much.
so much. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.